For more on this, we're now joined by KwaZulu-Natal Public Works Spokesperson Steve Bhengu, and he joins us now via our video link. Steve, thank you so much for your time this evening here on SABC News. I mean, you are taking and reclaiming the city's derelict buildings in the eThekwini municipality. Maybe if you can just give us an insight, how soon can those living in Durban expect this to be done?
Thank you, Mbali. Good evening to you and to your listeners. Well, look, Mbali, it will take some time. This is a bit of a process. According to the current audit, which we have undertaken, we have about 13,000 properties on our books. Now, some of these are being utilized, while some of them are abandoned and some of them are occupied illegally. Obviously, a typical example, which we saw today, was the likes of the Palm Beach Hotel, which we visited earlier at South Beach in Durban today, as well as the Siemens Rest building. Now, in the first instance, in the Palm Beach Hotel, this was a property which was used as a hotel, and for about a period of maybe over a decade, when business went down, it's been essentially left abandoned. And what happened is that you had individuals who went into the building who stripped it of all materials for whatever reasons. And we essentially took a decision to just block off entrances into the building. Now, in the second building we visited today, the Siemens Rest building in the Point precinct, we experienced a situation where the building was occupied by people who were living in there. And it was, a situation of a cramped living situation, as well as we saw illegal connections. But we are obviously lucky to say that in that particular building, we are in the process of handing it over to the eThekwini municipality, which it will then use to address its issues of housing. So, Mbali, there is progress being made, but it will take some time to eventually get through it all.
And maybe give us an insight in terms of the history of these buildings. Why were they abandoned in the first place?
Well, Mbali, one of the things we're finding is that there are a number of reasons for this. Sometimes we find it also difficult to find the previous owners of these buildings, and that's essentially going to be part of the audit process itself. In other instances, business goes bust and the buildings are just left the way they are and they're not taken care of. But our approach is three-pronged, essentially, Mbali. It's that we want to reuse the building to see if we can house maybe some other staff members from other departments, because we pay currently around 900 million rands in leases. And then we want to repurpose them to see if we can partner up with the private sector. So this will see us maybe handing over the buildings to an NGO with a good cause, or essentially maybe selling the building, essentially, where we see that that's the best decision to take.
I mean, you are saying that at least there's 13,000 of these buildings that have been brought to your attention, and at least 900 million rand there being spent by government. One would say that also trying to refurbish these buildings will not be cheap for the government.
No, it will not, Mbali. It's a costly exercise. And to give you a bit of more context, we pay about 1.2 billion rand. So these are for buildings that are utilized and buildings that are not utilized currently. So where we have a chance to partner up with the private sector, then they could obviously take over in some of the operations and fixing up of the buildings, and then that saves us in the form of rates which we have paid. And then that way they can also be able to execute that mandate, because obviously rental is very costly. So we will be saving them on that aspect, and then they'll be able to execute their mandate, and then it's a win-win situation. And that's why obviously the public-private partnership is something that we've also looked at closely on.
And Steve, when it comes to the issues around derelict buildings and hijacked buildings, I mean they pose a number of social problems in our country. One also being used as crime hotspots. They're also used as drug dens. Do you hope when you try and pin down all of these buildings, you will be able to root out a lot of crime in these areas?
Well, but that is the hope, and we intend to eventually have full accountability of what buildings are utilized, which are not, and then that'll give us a clear direction on the way going forward. You all remember that about recently, maybe about 2 weeks ago, the MEC Martin Mayor was in Ulundi, where he was briefed by department officials around another issue of about 300 more houses which were occupied illegally. So it is an ongoing issue, and obviously in various regions where these concentrations take place, such as in eThekwini, Msunduzi, and Ulundi. In Mhlathuze, we also have a similar situation as well. But in Mhlathuze as well, we are in communication with the municipality as well to be able to hand over some of these buildings where they can then address the issue of housing. You know, interestingly enough, also I think worth mentioning is that today the MEC also announced advanced plans to hold a 2-day conference in November. Now, he'll do this by putting forward a proposal document before Cabinet, which will then essentially see the earmarked date of November taking place. And essentially, the conference will bring together really provincial, national government, private stakeholders, law enforcement, and really to find a synchronized solution that will tackle the issue of these abandoned and hijacked buildings.
Steve Bhengu, thank you so much for your time. That is Steve Bhengu. He is the KwaZulu-Natal Public Works Spokesperson there, talking to us about reclaiming some of the city's hijacked buildings, at least 13,000 of those buildings that the department has identified.